Greetings, we're live. Welcome back to Gullah House Show. I'm here, Master Folia Jammu, my big cousin, my co-host, Baba Kimo. What's up, bro?
Hey, how you doing, Chief? Everything is good. We're here, big city of Orangeburg. Got a few things going on today here. We got the Rose Festival. Folks are getting excited about the upcoming Juneteenth celebration and everything.
Okay.
Tomorrow we got a job fair going on at the library. That's what's happening in Orangeburg right now. What you got going on in Salone?
Oh man, Salone is just fading into the rain season now. You know, we've been getting a little bit of rain day by day, but we're doing good out here, man. You know, the elections are coming in June, and it's pretty peaceful right now. People just going about their daily life. It's cool out here. But we are here for the African Liberation Day, the 25th of this month. So that's one good thing that's going to go down. But without further ado, I'm going to get into this interview. Looks like we just lost the brother, and he'll be coming back. But maybe we can talk about the context of the show until he gets back. This show, we're bringing to you members of the Garifuna community. Now, many people may not know what that is, but I'm pretty sure Baba Kimo, coming up in New York, you know, has known and been, you know, with the community for some time. Can you give me some of your experience with that community? Because I have my own little stories to tell, but what was it like in New York?
Man, let me tell you, I grew up in the Bronx, South Bronx. My neighborhood is very multicultural. We had some of everybody. We had Hispanic people. We had people from different parts of the Caribbean. We had people from Jamaica, Trinidad, Cuba, whatever. My own particular family is very multicultural. I have a Cuban nephew. I got my wife is from Trinidad and Barbados. I call my son, I call him a mutt because his history is from everywhere. Is from everywhere. He has very multicultural lineage. But I know of the Garifuna people well. They're in the South Bronx. I grew up with some of them. They're a very close-knit community. Some cool brothers. Like I said, the street I grew up on, we had everybody from all parts of the Caribbean.
No doubt. So as soon as we're able to get Brother Pablo here, we'll be able to really get into the conversation. But, you know, just until then, man, you know, from what I know about the Garifuna community, they are a Maroon people. That they originate as Maroons. They originate as people who took their freedom into their own hands and separated from white supremacy. And not only that, but they also align with the indigenous peoples of South America and the islands down there, which is good, man, because when we look at our history right there in South Carolina, Georgia, Florida, we find the same thing, where there was these instances of running away, getting to the swamps, getting to the riversides, and the Africans and the indigenous people forming strategic alliances for survival and defense. So I'm very excited to hear it from a Garifuna perspective and what they actually went through. Brother Pablo, I know him very well. It's been a few years that we, you know, actually hooked up, and hopefully we'll be able to get as well. She's down in Central America right now, so I believe she's in Belize, you know. But you know, preparing for the show, I was reading up on the history of Maroonage in South Carolina, and just the way that the community existed throughout the whole period of slavery, from the colonial times all the way up till emancipation times. So after the Civil War, you still had people who were liberated, self-liberated, were living in the swamps and in the bush. You know, evidence of it is being more and more revealed, but we really need to know more about this history, because from what I understand, Maroonage was the highest form of resistance that our ancestors could ever practice during that period.
You're exactly right. I'm just starting to familiarize myself with certain areas around Orangeburg and in this area. Like I was telling you earlier in the week, most of our ancestors came up near swamps, Goodland Swamp, Willow Swamp, oh, my mind is going right. Willow, various other swamp places around the Edisto area where they first emerged from the brush harbors and things like that.
Oh yeah. I was reading here. I'll read a little passage to you real quick while we're waiting for our guests. And for those of you guys out there, thank you. Welcome to the show. So let me see. Here it simply says, the historian Herbert found evidence that at least 50 such communities existed in the country between 1672 and 1864, especially among the sparsely settled mountains, forests, or swampy regions of South Carolina. It says it right here. It also says North Carolina, Virginia, Louisiana, Florida, Georgia, Mississippi, and Alabama. In South Carolina, Maroon communities were located in areas near rivers, such as the Savannah and the Congaree, and also in low country parishes such as St. John's, St. James, Goose Creek, St. George's, Dorchester, and Christ Church. So these are areas that they know for a fact that they had these pockets of communities. You know, it even goes on here and talks about how they used to flee. Usually individuals, usually men under the age of 30, but at times it was families, you know, 5 people, 8 people at a time that would take off and never be heard of again. They'd be out there in the bush. Exactly.
They would go into the deepest part of the swamp, probably where the Europeans were scared to go to, because they would go deep, way out where we past alligators, mosquitoes. It was dangerous, man. Gnats and everything, all kind of eels and poisonous snakes. They would go way out there and try to find some type of solid ground where they could start to cultivate and grow what they needed to sustain themselves in those areas.
Absolutely. That brings us back to T's and C's, man. Guys, don't forget out there, you can always support the T's and C's campaign we got going on. Go check us out at www.gullahleon.org. All the information is there. You know, make your donation, and we still got some funding to go on because we've been able to purchase the seeds, do the brushing, and so later on there will be another brushing before the harvest. So we want to be prepared now. But yeah, man, like you said, our people went to whatever extreme we had to go to in order to separate ourselves from the domination of white supremacy and slavery. Not only in the Caribbean and South America where we typically hear about it, but right there in the United States, you got the Dismal Swamp up there in southern North Carolina. Southern Virginia, northern North Carolina right there. And I'm sure that as the colonies begin to claim land more inland, that they literally was infringing on these Maroon communities. And some of these wars they talk about having with some of these indigenous people probably definitely had a lot of Maroons involved in the fighting.
Oh yeah, I read it where they were, some of them, once they got themselves into the swamp way out there, they would sneak back into the communities and raid, and then go back. You know, they would come out, raid, go back, come out and raid, and nobody could stop them. There were several well-known Maroons here in the PD area, Congaree area, that raised, for lack of a better, they raised a lot of hell in this area. Raised a lot of hell and scared a lot of people, and and even tried to take other slaves with them back into the swamp. But they all the ones left on the plantations also helped the Maroons out by giving them seeds and food and stuff so they could sustain themselves in the swamps.
I think that was one of the usages for the hush harvest, actually, that Maroon meetup. But hey, we got brother Pablo back. We're gonna bring him right on in and get right to the show. Brother Pablo, how you doing, brother?
I am doing fine. I'm having a little technical issues, but I'm here. It's a pleasure to be with you, gentlemen. This is a conversation that should have been had like I would say days ago, because I think it's a very, very vital conversation for us now. Because I just see too many similarities between us. We face
Yeah,
the same level of aggression through these colonial forces. And, our response to me is pretty much uniform, because I see a lot of the people from the Carolinas, I would say, particular
yeah,
South Carolina, I see us in you guys in regards to cultural legacy, cultural retention, and having the pride of being who we are.
yeah, yeah,
I mean, I don't see a lot of people with that nerve of doing that, of being proud of who they really are as a people, and setting up institutions to substantiate that or to support all these cultural legacies that we have. Um, for us in Honduras, as you know, the Garifuna people are Honduras, Nicaragua, Belize, and Guatemala, and St. Vincent as well. They're in St. Vincent. I would say in Honduras, we retain so much in regards to our cultural heritage going back to St. Vincent, because we still have communities in Honduras. Well, first of all, we have a total of 50 Garifuna communities along the Caribbean coast of Honduras. From Nicaragua to Belize, there's a total of about 78 to 80 Garifuna communities.
Okay.
wow,
So we're a community without borders because due to our language, we could communicate with family that's in Nicaragua, Belize, Guatemala, and Honduras. So the language is very important to us. I mean, I try to do as much as I can in regards to promoting the language and retaining it because I think that's the major indicator that keeps us together as a people.
yeah,
But all these nations, they have different governments. Nicaragua, they're socialists, pretty much communist. Honduras is supposedly democratic. Belize and Guatemala as well. And St. Vincent, or the government there, it's quite an interesting
right,
dynamic in seeing how Garifuna people are treated in all these countries. Because I had the pleasure to visit St. Vincent. I haven't been to Nicaragua. I've visited close to like 15 Garifuna communities in Honduras through my journey there as a youth and in my adult life as well. I've been to one community in Guatemala, Puerto Barrios, which is not Garifuna, but I do intend to go to Nicaragua, Belize, and the main Garifuna community of Livingston in Honduras, in
Okay.
Guatemala. I mean,
Now I know you're in the Bronx. So, what Bronx communities are you in? Because I'm from the Bronx, and I know I grew up with Hispanic people from different parts of the Caribbean. So, what part of the Bronx are you from?
I'm in Morris Heights. I grew up in the
Hey,
South Bronx.
that's my hood. that's my
Okay,
hood. That's where I'm
okay.
from. I know that area well. Well, I live right. You might know what Taft High School is off the Grand Concourse on 172nd Street.
Which high school?
Taft.
Taft. Absolutely. That's on Sheridan and 170th.
Sheridan Avenue, fam. That's where I grew up at.
Okay.
That's where I grew up at.
OG.
So on that block, on that Sheridan Avenue, we had some of everybody living on that block. In my building, we had some of everybody. I grew up tasting different foods from different parts of the Caribbean, from Honduras, from everywhere. As
Right.
you know, the Bronx is very multicultural.
Absolutely. The Bronx is an experiment, I would
Yeah,
say, because it's not necessarily uniform. Everybody is doing their own thing. What I find
exactly.
fascinating, Baba, is that a lot of people do not understand what this poor working class struggle is and where they fit in.
Yeah,
Because I see people, from the Hispanic community and African and the Caribbean, they look at each other different, quite
Yeah.
as it's kept. They look at each other very, very different. And I
yeah,
think the Garifuna people, through our language and cultural connections to all these communities, we're like the glue that can keep the Bronx community together. because we speak Spanish. We understand Latino culture. We come from Honduras, but we have this strong African presence, not only in phenotype, but in culture as well. Our food too, and our attire. Um, we accept all facets. I think we're closer to the African side than anything.
Yeah, yeah,
I felt like growing up, my side. I mean, you may relate to this as well. It felt like a tug of war there with the different communities between the Latino and the African American. It's like everybody was trying to get the Garifuna people's attention because we fit into all these communities. Where things get interesting is when it comes to politics and the blackness, like how each community views and embraces their blackness. That's very fascinating to me. I mean, I pay attention to that all the time.
absolutely. I wanted to get some historical knowledge from you, brother. To tie it all in for people. Myself and Baba Kimo, we was talking about the maroon aspect of Garifuna culture, the nature. How maroonage being the highest expression of course, resistance to slavery, imperialism, white supremacy, historically over the last few centuries. How do you see it still being that today in a certain kind of way? Because you have people who still live on the fringes of society, kind of like what you're saying, these stateless peoples who have their ethnicities and their languages, comprise population minorities everywhere, and really are disenfranchised as a people, really don't have a consolidated base from which to be a stateful people, or people who really have the same rights as the rest of the world. Where does that leave some of us at? I feel like the Garifuna people are a very vulnerable community that needs to have a lot more attention paid to them because of the value that you bring not only to the culture, but just to the history of who we are. If you follow the Garifuna history, it's like telling the history of all the Africans in the diaspora.
Yeah, it's a history of resistance, of resilience. I mean, it's a very historical fight because, as you know, so let me start with the how we have the Maroons in Saint Vincent.
Mm-hmm.
While the native Garifuna people of Saint Vincent were at war with the British with the help of the French because we used to get arms from them from Saint Lucia. There's a Garifuna brother in Saint Lucia called Marin Pedre that facilitated the arms um, for us to arms and ammunition to fight the British because the French and the British don't like each other.
Mm-hmm.
They never did. The Spanish, all of them, all of these three colonizers do not like each other. They
Yeah.
have, I think the language brings a different world view, and everybody is proud of their language, of their national language. So Spanish, French, and Britain, that's the language separates them all together. They view
Yeah.
themselves differently, even though they're European, but they view themselves different. But in order to oppress us, they get on cold, what they say.
Yeah. Yeah.
They work together
It's
to
crazy.
make sure that they oppress us. So
Yeah.
in St. Vincent, around the 1770s, which is the first, 1772 was the first Carib War, British enslavers was trafficking enslaved Africans into St. Vincent. So we at war with them, and they still trafficking enslaved Africans. This is, I believe, where we get the Sierra Leone, Cameroon, Nigerian DNA from.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
once they get there, Baba, I know what you're thinking, but once they get there, we already had set communities. The Garifuna and some Kali Nagos, they already had communities in St. Vincent, existing tribal communities in St. Vincent already. So these Maroons, they escaped and they intermarried into our community.
Okay.
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 So our chief, Joseph Chatelier, he made a call out to all the Caribbean. If you're enslaved, you're a free man and woman once you come to St. Vincent. We have the warriors in St. Vincent. There were Garifuna people in Martinique, Guadeloupe, Anguilla, Antigua, and many of the Lesser Antille Islands. But they were taken over by the British because they didn't have any warriors. All the warriors, the base was in St. Vincent. So we had a certain supply of warriors, the warrior class in St. Vincent. They couldn't go to each island, because there's many islands within that region. So you can't put all your forces in, and disseminate them. That would just we'll lose our power in St. Vincent, which is the headquarters of the Garifuna Nation. And that became our last stronghold, making it so that the last island in the Caribbean to be colonized is St. Vincent in the Caribbean. And that
Right.
was when we stopped fighting in 1795. We even know the name of the Scottish major that killed our chief, Alexander Lee, from the British Army. And he's buried in the Anglican Church in St. Vincent.
Wow.
So, after Chateaubriand was assassinated, the morale was down in the community. They marched us off. Some people escaped to the northern part of the island of St. Vincent. Some people went to Grenada, Barbados. Some people went to Trinidad as well. But the bulk of it, in which my ancestors came, I could trace my ancestors to those 5,000, and then that became 2,000 once they were transferred over to a concentration camp called Balisau, which is an island close to St. Vincent.
Okay.
So they stayed there for 3 months. Many of them died. Afterwards, I would say 2,000 survived that experience. They were transported. Well, they boarded like 9 ships, maybe 15, I believe. They made a stop over Jamaica to resupply food, what have you. And then they ended up in Punta Gorda, Honduras
Wow.
in 1797. So that 30-day journey, many people died as well. Roughly 2,000 made it to Honduras, and my lineage survived that journey. It was three
Yeah.
siblings: Sylvia, Sebastian, um, Sylvia, Sebastian. There was a third brother that survived. I don't remember his name right now, but that's where my Arriola family comes from.
Right.
So we
Wow.
stayed in uh in Punta Gorda, and then we moved to the mainland afterwards of Honduras, and we settled on the Caribbean coast. So when you say Maroons, I mean, I feel like we always been Maroons in Honduras because we were never accepted by the society.
Right.
I mean, it wasn't. I wouldn't say it wasn't as bad as the experience of the Gullah Geechee in the Carolinas. Because I understand that the Gullah Geechee played a pivotal role in the emancipation of what they call enslaved Africans over here. We didn't have
Yeah.
that type of system in Honduras. We were basically free once we got there, but we weren't necessarily allowed to be part of the society in Honduras. So that's why we retain our cultural legacy. The language
Right.
is still dominant because nobody was bothering us. And I think as a war tactic, they put us, or they allowed us to stay on the Caribbean coast to stop other nations from invading.
Okay.
Meaning the land was by the Spanish,
Sure.
was given to the Spanish. So we had French and Britain.
Okay. 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 I think he froze up a little bit. Oh man. We was touching on some good points, Baba. Glad,
Yeah,
brother.
I know. I know what he's talking about, the Maroons, but is he back?
Yeah, I
But
think so.
anyway, I was interested in the heritage part of his family, that he's able to trace his heritage back to
Oh
those
yeah.
three ancestors.
That's powerful, ain't it? Ain't it, cuz?
Yeah, that's very powerful. Back to the 1700s. I like that. That's very
Yeah.
cool.
That's
Yeah,
very powerful.
absolutely. My family, the Arriola family, they founded this community called Santa Rosa de Aguan. As one thing that I noticed about the Garifuna communities on the Caribbean coast, they're all named after a saint. This whole
Right.
colonization thing, religion
Right.
is very powerful. I mean, it got us going crazy. you
Hey,
know,
hey, hey. Bro, you know, kind of the same thing over here too. You know, the same thing in South Carolina. You got St. Helena, St. this,
Right.
St. that. It's because it was the Latinos that first colonized. It was the Latinos that first pushed up.
Okay.
We always talk about 1526, South Carolina, whereas the Spanish first went there to attempt to colonize, and over 100 Africans resisted and rebelled along with the indigenous natives, and they chased the Europeans back to Hispaniola and stayed. That's the first instance of African enslaved Africans being taken by Europeans to North America. We rebelled. We became marooned. We marooned.
Right.
And they wiped that out of history with 1619.
And then
they got you in Virginia. They got you in Virginia, and this happened in Georgetown. And Georgetown is the Gullah Geechee Maroon Haven, historically.
Right. Right.
So
that area, when they took off, they mixed in with the natives there, and you know they just intermingled with the family.
That's how you get the whole Seminole alliance later on.
Yeah.
Was that there was already a precedence for Africans and indigenous people understanding that they have a common enemy and working together despite the circumstances. Even you have situations where people were marooned over to the indigenous side and pretty much put themselves down just to be free along with the natives and take wives and live as the natives. You also have a situation where in Florida, the Seminole communities were separate from the Gullah Geechee communities. The blacks lived in one community, the Native Americans lived in another community, but they fought United States of America military together. We fought wars and there ever since Spanish opened up the ability for an African to run from a British colony, reach St. Augustine, Florida, convert to Catholicism, and then receive a gun. And so this is back in the 1600s, 1500s. This is history that they usually wipe under because they don't want you to understand it. Then, after the second Seminole War, the Gullah Wars, you see this mass where they did the same thing that you're explaining with the Garifuna. They said we cannot put these warriors back in with the enslaved population. They've been free for too many generations. There's no way we can put them back on these plantations. So they took us and put us all the way in Oklahoma and put us under the Native Americans who tried to re-enslave us and chased us to Mexico. So it's a whole similarity between our experiences in two different parts as African people. One of the things I understand is that there's even, from what I've seen, there's African aspects that have been retained in the Garifuna community that I run into here all the time. One of them is even terminology like Dugu. You know, you talk about Dugu. Can you talk about that a little bit? And then even what I explained of how I see it here and it being a clear crossover.
So Dugu for us is a ceremony in which we sing our ancestral songs, which are 800 years old, going back into the Caribbean. Something that I'm currently researching. I have a brother that's translating the Dugu songs that he practices here in the Bronx. His name is Bodoma. And I have some conversations with him. I mean, that could be a whole show, Masa, in which we talk about how the songs talk about us talking with extraterrestrial beings. And to me, that relates to the Dogon community in Mali. In a way. I mean, there's somehow a connection. I mean, that's something that we have to research, because when I start talking, I think people start saying, "You crazy, there's something wrong with you.
No.
Stop talking about it." You know what I'm saying? But we have retained that perspective. We even have songs that talk about our journey in Africa. In Garifuna language, we have a name for Africa. It's called Inene. That's the Garifuna name for Africa.
Okay. Wow.
So I've discovered that we have Lingala words in the Garifuna language. We have Bambara, we have some Soninke words in the
Okay,
Garifuna language. So
that's what I
remember,
was.
when these Maroons came in the 1700s, I'm thinking we were there before in St. Vincent. We could trace it back to those journeys by Abu Bakr.
Okay, well, I know exactly what you're saying. Taking it back to the journeys of Abu Bakr, for sure. Um, you back with us, bro? Yeah. So, hey, the Dugu terminology, you familiar with it, Baba?
I think we're back.
Oh, he's back. I heard him.
You back, Baba?
I thought I heard him come back
I
in.
think we're back.
I'm a
Well,
little familiar, a little bit
yeah,
familiar with
I'm back. I'm waiting for.
Okay, you can continue. All right. So, look, let's talk about this Dugu thing real quick because he just hit on something very, very heavy.
it.
When you say Dugu, to me, what
Yeah,
I
we're
hear is,
back.
all right, bet that, bet that. When I hear Dugu, what I hear is Ouagadougou. When you look at the map and you look at Burkina Faso today, you're going to see the capital city is Ouagadougou. You know, when you look at the original name of the Ghana Empire, you'll see that it was Ouagadougou. Dugu, Dugu, Dugu. Dugu means place. It means like sacred place. It means like community. You know, everybody has their Dugus. In other words, you know, their locality. Um, so Dugu is a term that you'll find all over this West African region, particularly when you talk about Ouagadougou, you're talking about a Soninke community. Like you said, Soninke people. These people, as I've been researching recently, they really came in a migration from East Africa, more from the Happy River area, and they settled in southwest Mauritania, southeast Mauritania, and established Ouagadougou or Ouagadougou. It's very, very key because what I do know about the Garifuna people is that some of them have the belief that they may have gone over prior to Columbus. You familiar with that? With the idea, brother? Yeah, you, Baba. You familiar with that?
Well, I'm sort of a little bit familiar. I know you're talking about Mande people, Mandinka people. On I've read a little bit of the Dogon people, but yeah, I'm
Yeah.
still researching.
Well, the thing is this, right? The Dogon people are related with the Mende, with the Mende people. The Dogon people, they had mastered astronomy. They have evidence that these people already knew the coordinates of the Earth. That these might actually be the scientist clans that have been responsible for global navigation, been responsible for pyramid building, that you had a class of scientists always that have been there, and that they may have that they may be preserved right there in the Dogon tribe. And when you hear about a Mansa from Mali going over, when you dig deeper, his name was actually Mansa QU. Abu Bakr was the brother of Sunjata Keita. It wasn't him. Before Mansa Musa was Mansa QU. When you go check the actual research, but people have given it to Abu Bakr. They say that Abu Bakr wasn't really actually before Mansa Musa. I've learned that here. So there's Mansa Musa never mentioned the name of his predecessor. He never said his name was Abu Bakr. So here, when they go into the to the history, it's not Abu Bakr, it's Muhammad Q. It's actually his cousin.
Okay.
And the story goes that when Mansa Musa went on his pilgrimage, he told the story to the king. The king said, "How did you become the king? What is going on? How did it happen?" And he was like, "Well, the person before me, he fell in love with the water. and he told them a story about I believe it was 200 ships that he first sent out, and he told them don't return, go until you find this river or whatever, this disturbance in the water, and then return. So everybody, when they reached the current, which happened to be the Canary Current, the same current that the Europeans rediscovered and took over, and used the whole time to bring our people over there, was like a river in the middle of the ocean. It had its own current. Once you reach there, you already set the sail, and you arrive in Central America, South America, the Caribbean from the end of that journey. St. Vincent and the area of the Garifuna would have been right in proximity to where a ship would have been able to land, going that route anyway. They've had researchers later on take simple ships from West Africa, simple ships from back in the days, and travel the same route. And say, man, they could have did this easily with 200 of these ships. With 200 ships, at least 100 would have made it over. So they understanding like that was wise. But when the ships came back and reported to the Manson, they said, Manson, man, this is what happened to the other ships. He wasn't discouraged. He was encouraged, which means that he must have had information that's what he was looking for. Where he got that information, maybe from the doggone, maybe from people who already had traveled the seas, maybe from people who already understood astronomy and science and things like that. But if Mansa Musa was wealthy enough to be considered the wealthiest man ever, what was his predecessor? They say he came with 2,000 ships. He left with 2,000 ships for the West, and nothing was ever heard again.
Wow.
That's what they say, 2,000 ships. And you'll find Mandinka language in Brazil. You'll find Arabic written. You'll find even Columbus saying that he found black and red Caribs. But he doesn't never say where the red Caribs came from. Then when they check the Guinea, the actual gold tips of some of the black Carib spears, they took them back to Spain to test them, and it was the same Guinea that they was getting from the Malians. That means the alloy, the cut, it's like however you cut minerals, however you cut gold. We cut ours so we could smell it. Malian gold had a scent. And so this is the gold that Columbus was able to take samples of during his first journey back. So there's a lot of evidence to prove, or at least to suggest, that there was some kind of contact between at least these black Caribs, which some people now call Garifunas, and even Columbus early on. So yes, I agree with what you're saying, brother. I think there's a lot of room to explore and research. I believe we have Mama Cynthia Ellis on right now. We have our second guest here now. I want to bring her in, and then we can continue the conversation. Joe.
Yes. Greetings. Mama Cynthia Ellis has been.
Yeah, Boite Benafi, good morning.
Good morning.
Happy to be with you. I have to be honest, I am a bit biased. When I was looking at the time, I was thinking of Belize time, no? I'm in Belize.
Oh, it's okay. How's
but
Belize?
It's wonderful there.
How was it there? I said, how is Belize?
Sorry?
How is Belize?
Belize is awesome. Awesome, powerful, beautiful. I'm biased.
I hear you. So we were just talking with brother for a minute. Actually, we had some great conversation. He explained to us the migration from St. Vincent over to the Central America parts, and some of how some of the challenges of the community. Can you address some of the challenges, and particularly, can you speak on the women? We're Gullah Geechees, and our mothers, our women, they are just it. They are our program. Like they are our queens. Can we talk about the Garifuna woman and the queenship of the Garifuna woman and the motherhood of the Garifuna woman and what it really stands for African people?
I just want to ask permission. Sometime I might take off the video because maybe it compromises the communication, But I wanted you to see my face. Is that okay?
Yes, no problem.
Okay. So we don't have problem with the communication. Do I need to press anything or do you turn off the video?
Let me see. I don't know if I can turn off your video. You have to turn your video off on that side, I believe.
That's okay. Well, let's see what happens. Okay, we're gonna have faith that the Ahari is going to provide the right communication. I just want to say that it's an honor and a privilege to be sharing on this platform. That and I was very um, thankful to hear the previous conversation, which is that the Mali connection. I recently was in New York for the United Nations Permanent Forum for Indigenous People, and it was a pleasure to meet a queen from Mali. And we met in the lobby, and we immediately greeted each other as queens. And so that gives a clarity of knowledge of self and kind that is embedded in our DNA. And
Yes.
I will send you a video that I was interviewed by young people, a young woman in Tallahassee, Florida, and I shared with her that we have two versions of the story of how we arrived here, and the version that I love and I embrace is that we came from Mali. We were explorers, we were traders. Like how Van Sertima says, we came before Columbus. And the
Yes.
beauty of being a Garifuna woman, an African woman, I remember the first time I went to Africa, it was in Dakar, Senegal. And I literally wept, not understanding why, and kissed the ground of Africa. And the occasion of my going to Senegal, I was studying in Europe at the time. And when I even crossing the Atlantic Ocean was a powerful experience. I felt when I landed in Senegal so overjoyed and somewhat sad because imagine having an interpretation of the world from one side, that is the West. And
Yeah.
the occasion of my meeting was a gathering of women, African women from all over Africa. I was very young at the time. I'm young at heart now. And I remember listening to these African women speak to the issues of Africa. And I remember saying to myself, one day I want to be able to be like them, to express myself like them, to carry myself like them. There was such a deep alignment. And now I am like them. I am a warrior. Recently, we had a homecoming to St. Vincent, which is called, we call Yurume. We as Garifuna people don't wait for others to define us. We define ourselves. So when we are referred to as Black Caribs or whatever the titles that are used, we refer to ourselves as ourselves. And it was a powerful, powerful homecoming where we went to the island of Balisau, where the invaders or the enslavers had put us on this island because we resisted enslavement. We, the Garifuna people, we rather die. It shows even pictures of us in St. Vincent as we are being pursued, that we are jumping over the cliff rather than be succumbing to enslavement. And one of the beautiful stories I love about the Garifuna woman is that while we honor and we respect and expect our men to be there to protect us and the children, we are also supporters. And one of my heroes is Barauda. When Chatouye, our sovereign king and chief, was not moving according to how the women were thinking, the woman said to Chatoyer and the other chiefs, give us the pants and we will do the job. So there's a resilience and a tenacity in us as Garifuna women to take care, to protect, not to disrespect or to dishonor our men, but continue to get the job done no matter what.
Yes, that's beautiful. That is beautiful. That is very, very powerful. I, um, we are nothing without the women. The men don't exist without the women. We have nothing to fight for or die for without the women. Nothing to work for. We have no purpose if it is not to keep our women satisfied and protected. And our women, there's no comparison in the world. And it doesn't matter what ethnicity we're talking about, what language we're talking about. Put us in the ring with any other two group, any other man and woman, and I guarantee we come out on top as long as the ground is even. So I want to talk a little bit about what we can do to bring our communities closer. Myself and Baba, we represent the Gullah Geechee community of South Carolina in particular. And we're very, very interested in forming stronger relationships and ties with other indigenous groups, groups like us that don't necessarily have a citizenship or a nation state or military or things like that, but we are a people. We are a people. We have our culture, we have our traditions, we have our lineages, and some of us even are restoring and rebuilding our chiefdoms. Beginning to re-include the broader extended family clan network. We have to rebuild this, and we can use these English terminologies, but these concepts are ancient African for us to understand what extended family is and working together and building together is. One, I wanted to ask, have you been able to connect with the Gullah Geechee mothers? There's Gullah Geechee mothers out there. We just had several of them on the show that do great work, and they are the embodiment of what it is from our cultural way. I would like to see how we can kind of bring the women together, man. Bring the warriors together and see what we can do together sometime, somewhere, someplace. Baba Kimo and Brother Pablo, they already grew up in the same neighborhood, in New York. So we're closer than we think.
I love that.
Exactly.
I love that question, and I love that question. I love it so much, and I just wanted to speak to it and connect the thread or weave the thread. It's like a mosaic, where we are more connected than we recognize. And as even in the woman question, I am I want to present a relationship with the Black man. And many years ago, I wrote a poem instinctively. I wrote a poem called I Love You, Black Man. And that was as a result of my living in the United States for a time where I was noticing that there was seemingly a focus on the disrespecting and the annihilation of Black men and using we as women to undermine the positioning of the Black man. And that thing really struck me, and I felt and I feel that there are certain things that we as families, communities, and Black men and women can deal with and trash out internally among ourselves and not throw our men and our people to the mercy of these systems that don't embrace or love us or understand us. And one of the things I love about Garifuna, being a Garifuna, is that we acknowledge that we have been traumatized by this journey across the ocean back and forth, right? I'm talking about the other version, the other story about how we were pursued for enslavement and we resisted being enslaved, which began first in our state of mind, in our state of being, in our state of consciousness, in our state of everything. So no matter what is done to us, we decree and we declare that we are a nation state within nation states. So being a part of the Garifuna Nation, there are two tracks. The first track is the one that the other non-Garifuna or non-indigenous or non-African people want to impose on us through the colonization process. We have systems and structures that we have to fight constantly in the world. And then there's the other track, which is that everybody has blood of black or African or indigenous or whatever name you want to call, is a part of this family, is a part of this nation, is a part of this network. So once we know who we are and we know who we are, and we continue through our rituals, through our gatherings, through our healing processes to have a cleansing. We have our own space called the Dabueba, where we are constantly in a process of cleansing, because the trauma and the genocide that we experience has been so intense that we have to
Yeah.
constantly be releasing that negativity. So I really embrace, and it happens spiritually, not something that I plan or write a project or write a program. The Ahari, those are the spirit of our ancestors, connect us in a way that we will have the conversation. So I became aware of the Gullah through living in Buffalo, New York. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I want to go there. I want to be there. Those are my people. Those are our family. Those are our relatives. And so, yes, the answer is it begins with a state of consciousness, a state of being, a state of declaration, a state of affirmation that nothing and nobody can stop. And that is why when the United Nations declare the Garifuna as a masterpiece culture for humanity in 2001, my campaign and my appeal and our appeal from the Garifuna Nation is that we too need to declare that. We too need to move in that space and in that power of that fact, of that reality, of that truth. So these different definitions of who we are, Maroon, Gullah, Haitian, Dominican, Jamaican, let us demolish those to a point where we are all one people and embrace each
Yes.
other as being our relatives.
Yes, mommy. Yes, yes, yes.
That was
One
powerful.
African nation. The name is irrelevant. Like you said, one people, one family. We say many roots,
One
one family.
Fambul.
That's what we say.
Okay.
No matter what your roots is, we belong to the same family. It's more than just looking alike. You kind of look like my older sister, but it's more than just looking alike. It's also about being alike. Like we really are the same people. Not an ideal. It's not something we're trying to convince ourselves of. We really are in the same exact struggle, fighting against the same exact forces, seeking the same liberation. And the difference is are secondary to that. Our diversity actually gives us the advantage at this point. And whereas being what they call state nations may have been an impediment in the past, today is actually becoming more and more of a way for us to pursue for the collective. A lot of people are bogged down by their nation state citizenship identities. We're people that identify each other as a people based on our culture, our spirituality. And I want to ask a little bit more about this. Can you explain to us, both of you, what is Garifuna spirituality? What is your spirituality? And can you touch on your language a little bit?
Sure. It's hard to explain because how does one define spirituality and calling? You know what I'm saying? From the time as a Garifuna, both my parents are Garifuna ancestors before, and so that sense of knowingness comes like from, I guess, within one spiritual DNA, you know. And what I have discovered in my pilgrimage of life and journey is that we get it in dreams, we get it in visions, we get it in our interaction, we get it based on the boldness and the confidence of how we have been overcomers and people of resistance in spite of the genocide that our people experienced. in spite of all the trauma, Garifuna captures people who are overcomers. We are people who, when we do not compromise, when we know who we are, we can step anywhere in the world. So I am ambassador at large for the Garifuna Nation, which I didn't get that through no colonial structure or entity. It came to me after spending almost a year in our Dabuyeba, listening, listening quietly to the call of the ancestors. I was physically alone, it would seem, but hundreds and thousands of them would have been present. And Garifuna, we believe that we are physical people, we are spiritual beings in physical bodies. So being a Garifuna is a sense of knowingness, is a sense of beingness, is a sense of capacity to overcome. So I remember going into the rainforest of Suriname many, many years ago. And in that part of the rainforest, I discovered, was told it's a place where white people have never been. They can't go there, they are not allowed. And in order to enter that space, I had to tell the people who I am. Who am I? Who is a Garifuna? And so that meant that I had to have a sense of knowingness, of beingness, and then I was allowed to enter into this space, right? The village of Maroons. And interestingly, before I went into the village, many months before, every time I would look in the mirror, I would not see myself. I would see like an ancient woman with white hair, and that did not frighten me. Do you know that when I entered the village of Suriname, in Suriname, I met the same woman that I saw in the mirror, and she said to me in the Maroon language, "I've been waiting for you." And her name is Maunde. She transitioned a few years ago. Maunde means the mother of the villages along the river bank. So these are ways of being and understanding that the Garifuna we call Garifuna Duo. That is the beingness of being Garifuna. And so this conversation that we are having right now is a very sacred one, because every one of us needs to have a sense of self, a sense of knowledge of where we have been and where we are, to interpret where we are going to. And being Garifuna is not just me born in Belize. Being Garifuna is a state of being. Like you could be Garifuna too. These are just labels and stamps that the other world wants to put on us. Being Garifuna is anywhere we are in the world, even transcending the physical world, to be able to have the capacity to download our ability to transform not only ourselves, but our families, our communities, our world. And that is the calling of the Garifuna people. That's a gift, that's a treasure that we have been given, not just for ourselves, but for others. So, for example, in Belize, the Catholic Church recognized the strength of the Garifuna people, and they used us to open schools in the whole of this country, to teach the Maya. The Maya are the first peoples on this Central American mainland, and we have over 600 pyramids in Belize, and the Garifuna, we were the ones who interfaced with them. So that is the power of ourselves that we need to embrace. All of us have that power. All of us, if we tap deep within and dig into that power and stop believing that narrative, that fat lie that we are nothing and that we are nobody, and change the narrative to the fact that we are kings, we are queens, we are royalty, and we have the capacity, like Chatouillet, like Toussaint Louverture, like Nani of the Maroons, like Baroda, like Golisi, to transform for the sake of the next generations to come.
Ashe.
So, Baba, we have a name for our spirituality system. It's called Ugulendu. Remember that word, Dugu,
Yeah.
Ugulendu?
Okay.
That's the name of our spiritual system.
Wow.
So that particular spiritual
Yes.
system ties into our worldview as a people, which is love for humanity, love for our environment, and have this connection with other beings, not just humans, but the environment as well.
Yeah.
So we have a tenet in the Garifuna community called Auraboni Amurununi, which means in English, I for you and you for me. So under that one commandment is how we base our lives.
Like Ubuntu almost.
In yes, yes. It's because to me the way that we're structured in political language as a communist or socialist people. Like we worry about the well-being of the entire society, not just ourselves.
Yeah.
So when we follow this particular ideology, the Ugolendo ideology in St. Vincent, that was why how we repelled this whole colonial onslaught when we were
Right.
fighting the wars.
Right.
We would pray and then we would fight. We always had our spiritual priests with us when we would go out to war.
Right. Right.
So once we stop, Baba,
yeah.
Baba, check this out. Once we stop believing in our worldview, Ugolendo, and embrace these European religions, everything went downhill. We became a very poor community,
Yes.
disenfranchised community,
Yep.
destitute, when we stopped believing in Ugolendo. And this is like the psychological terrorism that we live in right now. Because in Garifuna society, and Sister Cynthia could tell you, we embrace all European religions. And that's because of this need of wanting to be part of the greater dominant society of Nicaragua, Honduras, Belize, and Guatemala.
Right. Right.
So we're right now we're trying to recover the essence of our being, which is Garifuna Duvalle.
I think that we're doing
That's the
same.
essence of being Garifuna.
Yeah. I think
Yes, absolutely. As
I think it's the same thing with Gullah
as I
Geechee.
alluded to,
That's exactly the same thing we're
Yes.
going through. We're trying to rediscover ourselves, rediscovering ourselves. And I know that from being through the different, connected to the different cultures, and in New York, I witnessed it for myself. I witnessed it down here in South Carolina, and that's what we're trying to do, rediscover ourselves.
Baba Kimo, Mansa. I have a sister from the Gullah Geechee community. She could trace her lineage through the South Carolina Orangeburg side, I believe. When she hear our drums, she goes into trance.
Yeah.
Why?
The same thing.
Why?
We're trying to rediscover ourselves. The same thing used to happen to me right there on 161st Street. Every Sunday, Garifuna people, Hispanic people would bring out their drums. And those drums would be calling me. I would get out there and sit and listen to the drums. So I've been on this journey a long time.
Baba Kimo, check this out. When I took my aunt, my sister from the Gullah Geechee community to visit my aunt, even the singing of the Dugu song, she started going into a trance. Like she'll start tearing out, her eyes would get watery. She'll go into a trance just by the singing. So when I saw that, there's something that we have that is like the glue to the rest of the Americas. I mean, Sister Cynthia has been doing this international journey and trying to bring us all together by going to Suriname, by going to Jamaica, by going to Dominica, by going to St. Vincent, with this framework to bring us all together. And we've been on this thing for a while now. For me, it took a process for me to fully love and respect and dignify myself through the help of my mother and my grandmother. And which you were talking about, your mother played a significant role in your life, and to like really try to rediscover yourself, like your true self. Because one of the problems that we have, Baba and myself, we hate ourselves.
Don't we?
We hate ourselves. We hate ourselves.
We do.
Because we see evidence of Black people doing some real reprehensible things to each other.
Yeah. It's called menticide, brother. Our minds, our mental capacity to think logically in our own interests has been completely destroyed. We've been turned against ourselves.
So,
And it's very
um,
difficult. It's very difficult. But you're right. There has been a brainwashing that has disarmed us mentally, psychologically. We can't handle the truth, bro. The truth breaks us down every time.
Right. So we don't. Once we don't handle the truth and we don't want to admit to the truth, that's a spiritual problem,
Mm-hmm.
Mansa and Baba Kimo. That's a spiritual problem. So
Yeah,
for
absolutely.
me, I fully embrace the Gul ceremony. I share it on Facebook because Garifuna people are scared to be their true selves. So me being as a middle aged man, right now, I think it's important for my generation to start talking about these things. And I think, Mansa, you started with your community, but we got to go back to our spiritual system
Yeah,
first because we
yeah,
got to be spiritually grounded to continue on this journey. Without the spirituality, being firm, and validating you first as a person and loving you for who you are. For me, it will be being Garifuna, being embracing Garifuna Dual, speaking the language, dancing, learning the songs. That can happen in your community as well. Because I see the similarities within us, in which the Maroons do in Jamaica, Suriname, Dominica. We're all the same people. I mean, we're here
yeah,
fighting oppression. We're here fighting white supremacy. We're here fighting this major psychological terroristic psychology that we have been taught.
yeah.
We're trying to undo all that. It starts with the spirituality, Nasa and Baba and Sister Cynthia. It starts with
I,
the spirituality.
Everything you said
can I?
was right on. Everything was
I
right
want
on point. I noticed that
about
myself when I was in Jamaica a few months ago. I was amazed at the similarities between the Gullah people and the Jamaicans. It was just like being at home. That's how I felt. You know, it was the same
yeah.
thing.
Mama Cynthia, sorry, y'all.
can I say something about strategy and moving forward?
Yes,
Um,
ma'am.
First of all, I want to thank you for the platform because platforms like this, where we are like catalysts for changing the narrative. My daughter told me many, many years ago when I was saying something to her, she said, "Ma, please, can you stop speaking from a place of woundedness? Please speak from a place of triumph." And that does not mean that we are denying what was done to us or what is done to me, but the determination to bring back capacity and strength. I remember when I was in Soweto many, many years ago in the homelands, it was horrible. All of us were weeping at the atrocity. And then all of a sudden, seemingly from nowhere, a group of young men, strong, strapping young men, were chanting and marching, and that we wiped our tears because that was a testimony to us that we are called to embrace the power of who we are in spite of. And as a woman, you asked the question about a Garifuna woman, and you mentioned religion. One of the wisdom that we use in Garifuna, we learn to be like guerrilla warriors, meaning that we have the capacity to strategize in a way that it look one way, but it's another way. So I said to an African American sister who was visiting here in Belize, when she see me go to the church, the Catholic church, she said, "What are you doing in that church?" I said, "Darling, I am not there looking at no white saint or white nothing. I am there presencing my ancestors who were in that space." So with wisdom and strategy, we learn, and I want to call on the African American to be a part of this conversation. We're waiting for you because the Underground Railroad, I went to the Museum of the Enslaved. And when I went to the Museum of the Enslaved in Alabama, and then I went to the Museum of the Underground Railroad, then I realized that the African American voice is needed in this conversation and the African American capacity to say we are a nation within a nation is an essential part of the conversation. So I want to invite us to continue to dialogue, to continue to embrace one another, to continue to lift up one another. My Garifuna name is Lubafu Isieni, meaning the powerful essence of love. It's hard to translate, but this came to me when I was in the Dabueva, that my name needs to be present in that reality. So all of us can begin to speak our names without apology, to speak our
Yeah.
language without apology. And the language is not just a literal language, it's also like as a woman, how I wear my clothing, how I braid my hair. Remember when we crossed the ocean, we put seeds in our braids, we put gold and diamonds in our skirts. So these are the strategies that we need to get deeper into. And if we can agree that we will not allow the enemy to have us destroy ourselves, we destroy ourselves by the language of negativity and acquiescing to having them destroy our men. I am a mother of 5 children and 17 grandchildren, and I am doing this for them and for the children of the world. As a grandmother, we move forward. As a grandfather, to determine and to destine a different way of being for our people for the next 7 generations to come, and turn over every stone, every treasure that we have been given to break this cycle, knowing that we can do it, knowing that we are overcomers, and let our tears be tears of triumph.
Ashe.
Very good. That's nice. Great.
Yes. There's no other
Powerful.
way.
That was powerful.
There's no other way. There's no other way, Mama. Thank you very much. Because this is really Sunday morning. Our people are used to getting up Sunday morning and getting a good sermon. You know, getting up in the book and learning some analogies, you know, and getting some inspiration. And that's why we're doing the Gullah House Show, man. We want to invite people into the house with Gullahs on Sunday mornings and talk about our culture, talk about our history, and strategize. I believe that without guerrilla warfare, without our people having an understanding of advanced guerrilla warfare, unconventional warfare, using any tool and converting it into a weapon, using any means, small groups, fast attacks, get out of there, disguises, code languages. I believe that if we don't return back to our original way, and that's not even religious, that's just our way of life. That's the way we survive. We're really going to lose. We're really going to lose out, and a lot of our people are going to continue to be casualties of this war. Because that's what this is. This is an ongoing century after century after century war. And some of us can't even define it. But I fully recognize the Garifuna people as my nation, my cousins, my brothers, my sisters, my aunties, my uncles. Because one thing for sure is that we've been fighting the same struggle. And this blood in our veins is still the blood in our, it's the same blood our ancestors had too. The difference is that divided us long ago, it's time for us now to do away with them. It's time to do away with them. We need to begin to learn each other's culture again. Gullah Geechee, we got the ring shout. You know, me and Baba Rock's ancestors came out of the Hush Harbors. Anybody know about them? You know, during the Civil War, there was massive flight. People was running. They was trying to get to the Union side, but not everybody could get there. And after Denmark Vesey and Gullah Jack were hung for their rebellion in Charleston, South Carolina banned all African congregations. African people couldn't get together and congregate. And we had used the church to hide our spirituality within. We had used the church to hide our family inside. So it was a way for us to have a form of family that was larger than bloodline, because so many of us was divided and away from our family. So we created a religious form of family that, because we got the shared belief, it's like having the same blood. And we would risk our lives. We run away from our plantations in the middle of the night just to get together and have these spiritual gatherings in the bush. And that's where our family's Black American Church emerged from in 1863, before emancipation. Our people fled the plantations and got busy. They got close to some swamps and some riverways, a Disto River, and they start settling themselves. And when Tecumseh Sherman came through with the Union Army, many of us jumped on that army and went to continue to fight. So there's instances of resistance and maroonage that typically gets overlooked because it wasn't sustained maroonage. It was situational maroonage. You know, African people began to flee behind Union lines, and those who couldn't make it, they had to find a bush. They had to find a swamp and wait until them Union soldiers came through. And so it's very, very important, man, for us to get down and really understand our culture. I would love to actually invite y'all down. If y'all able, man, come down Orangeburg. You know, that's our home county in South Carolina. I'm sure Baba Kimo is there ready to welcome you. Take you down to our ancestors' villages. We say villages because that's what they were for us. There were all Black settlements right after emancipation. And then the Europeans found value in them and built towns close by. And so our ancestors literally lived in little Africas. And our region, and we welcome, we had absorbed even the wanderers, even the people who came in 1858 on the last illegal ship into the region. 114 of them came to our region. So we have Congo drums, we have mug face arts in Edgefield. You know, we have a very, very strong African culture there that never really became anything part of America. You know, hoodoo is very diverse. You never know what you're dealing with when you deal with hoodoo. It could be some Congolese spirituality. It could be something from Senegal. It doesn't matter. It's very, very diverse. You have to watch who you deal with because it's lineage based. You can't stop someone from inheriting their power. You can only try to prevent them from understanding it and using it. And so we have our understandings as well, man. It would be great for us to continue this conversation. We went over, and we should have gone over. I'm glad that we went over the 1 hour. I believe that this is definitely up there, one of our greatest shows, and we'll be more than happy to bring y'all back in the future. Maybe for some, maybe for a broader conversation around independent nationhood of, traditional African societies, maroons, and what we got to do today. We're definitely all the way down with that. So after this, if you have any ideas that we can do, if we have anything coming up, we'll definitely be reaching out to y'all to include.
Oh, well, it looked like Chief froze up. But I just wanted to say myself, I have a saying, I always say, restoration is in order. And I believe in connecting with the various African communities in the diaspora. I've made my connections with my cousin Fode. I've found family in Sierra Leone. Like I said, my wife is from Trinidad, Barbados, and Charleston. That's her heritage. And we're here. We want to make the connection. We want to use this as a platform to reach out to the various communities.
This is very exciting, and I want to thank you. We need each other. People need people, and the calling is very clear. And let's just be quiet and have the courage to respond to the calling. When I was in Buffalo, New York, a couple days ago, and I made sure I went to Niagara Falls to pay homage to the Underground Railroad Museum. And I would like to invite us to say that the Underground Railroad wraps around the world. And so you are invited to Belize. I went to Jamaica with all the Maroon communities and all the Maroon leaders. And as you're saying, brother, I see myself, I know that I am a spiritual leader, a guide, and it's not just for me, but to embrace and to give that healing love and that power to the brothers and sisters. That's what we did in Jamaica. And no matter what the structures they say about us. The important thing is what we say about ourselves, and the intentionality and the boldness to step into the power of who we are, the determination that we are the ones that we are waiting for, and that we are overcomers for the sake of our children and future generations. We got this done. We're going to have people can come down here, bring the young people here so that they can participate in the battle of the drums, change the narrative about men being criminals and whatever the negative profiling to the essence, the beauty of our kings and our princes. And we just do that by exchanging with each other and leading the charge forth.
All right, Brother Pablo, you have any last words?
Yes, I find this conversation very healing and enlightening because we need healing, Papa Kimmel and Sister Cynthia. I mean, we've been terrorized to the degree that we don't know who we are. So to me, this is educational, healing, and it's a much needed conversation. And I look forward to continuing it with you and the rest of the Maroon family throughout the Americas.
Well, you're more than welcome. If you're ever in South Carolina, you're welcome here. My wife she'll be in New York in a couple of weeks. She's coming to the Bronx to visit some of her family she got there. So
Okay.
we're maintaining the connections, bro. We are one family.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. I think the chief, he fell off, but we'll be in touch. We'll be in touch.
Sounds good because an hour it's hard to put things or shorten things an hour because so many things happen within our society that I would like to communicate over to the Gullah Geechee community because the links are there. They're definitely there.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I know you and oh, that's him trying to call me right now. But I know you and Fode have been friends for years, and we're going to maintain that friendship. Also with the sister, we're going to maintain that friendship. So,
Yes.
yeah. But yeah, let me see. I guess. Yeah. He just called me. I see him. He sent me a message. His lights went out. They had that problem in Sierra Leone, but everything is well. Right. I'll be in contact with him, and we'll be in contact with you guys.
Sounds great, Brother Como. It's a pleasure meeting you.
Same here, brother. I'm going to reach out to you. We're going to be tight. We're going to be doing our thing for sure. All right.
Sounds great.
So y'all have a good day, and we'll be in contact.
Yes, thank you, sir. You have a good day.
All right.
Messenger audio.
Hello? Bode. Hello? 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 48. Hello? 48. Hey. Hello? 48. Hey. Hello? 48. What? Looking for me? Hello? Hello? Come on, the money, then they get your money on time. That, my dear, was a man from the Bronx. A Garifuna brother from the Bronx. The heavyweight. Oh God. Do it again. Oh, are you holding me down? I'm holding you. I'm I am not that heavy, buddy. Okay. What you change your clothes for? You go on the wall, you put on shorts or something? No, I don't wear those. Oh, I didn't see you. Oh, it was short. You saw the trouble. It's conspiracy, Lisa. I agree. They want to drag it out so it could be a game 6 or a game 7 because those are the two top teams in the playoffs. They make the money. And everybody else ain't really interested in ball. Philly is scrub. They scrub. I don't know what Phoenix and Denver look kind of powerful. But what I don't know who Phoenix, whoever wins, So I know some people would like to see it now.
Oh, interesting.
That would be interesting.
Yeah.
Now, Boston might end up here. Yeah. Sucks. Unless, I don't know, the Knicks play tomorrow. They gotta win tomorrow. Ain't no doubt about that. Tomorrow is a must win for them. It's a must win.
Yeah.
No, they can't afford to go down 3-1.
I thought that was like that.
No. I mean, no. I mean, it's still, but they can't afford to go down just 3-1. Tie it up, yeah, I can live with that.
But you know when stuff like that happens, that tells me that just to me puts just a light on Steve Curry's lack of real coaching ability. Coaches, get y'all together. Down on this half time, whatever. Spotlight, that's the word. Spotlight. Yeah, watch his head. Stinky. Come on, stinky. Do the stinky thing. Do the stinky thing. All right. Tonight is the last night of my real estate thing.
Tonight? Oh. I guess you can catch it anywhere, huh?
Yeah. Because this is kind of a light month as far as work, which is where we today. This is the only Sunday I have to work this month. And then I have something on Saturday, the 20th. So just those 2 days. I'm coming on a Friday. Oh, 10 to 12. Ooh, deployment event. 300 people. Captain, somebody.
Where's this thing at? Is this in the conference center tomorrow or this?
Tomorrow.
In a multi-purpose room, or this job fair?
Multi-purpose room because tomorrow it's going to be somebody, a wedding, something rehearsal.
Man, you should have seen them there. The
3 o'clock.
The way them damn people was carrying on in there yesterday.
Oh, so you was telling me that?
The church people, man. I mean, Lisa did. They was shouting and that. Hallelujah.
They was having church.
They was. They really was.
What was they there for anyway?
Huh?
What were they there for anyway? For church or really, or what was it for?
No. For
There was a pastor in there?
yeah.
Make for breakfast at Shoney's. Lunch right now. All right. Getting a little rowdy out here last night. Always you. Come on, a little toe clap. Oh, do I need a jacket? Okay.
You say you're walking over there?